let's walk through the profit statement in detail. First, as you get into the screen, you're going to see each of your individual departments as you entered them on the top half of the screen. And we're going to show you the individual department as well as a combined total for all departments in your company. In each department, you'll see the calculation method. Remember, as we put our calculation method together, and this will apply to every single report in the software, you could determine whether you want to tell the software what your current hourly rate will be, and it will tell you what your profit dollar and profit percentage is at that dollar amount rate. Or you can tell it what you want to make for a desired net profit, and it will tell you what you need to charge per hour to hit that number and what your cash flow will look like. So in this particular case, our service department is set to a current hourly rate of $116 per hour. The software will tell us what we'll make or lose at that rate. In the installation department, we're set to a desired net profit of 12% and replacement department at 15%. Again, the software will tell us what we need to charge per hour to hit those net profit percentages. Over on the other side, we've got the retail only column. Now, the retail only really will only display information if you set up one of your departments as a retail department. So, for example, like a pool and spa company that has a true retail store and they have customers coming in to buy product from them, there's no labor involved in that one. If you didn't set up any of your models as a true retail department, that column will be blank. And the last one is the selected column. Lets you get into picking and choosing what's displayed on the screen. I'll cover that in just a few minutes. Now let's go into, as I scroll down, go into the balance of the report. We actually have at that point a P&L, right? So the profit statement is essentially a profit and loss statement from a cash flow perspective. So it's going to be laid out the same way. All of our sales, all of our cost of sales. Below that, we're going to have all of our variable expenses and then all of our fixed expenses. And then down at the very bottom, we will have a grand total net income, net profit for this particular department. Now, the default layout for this report, I'm going to go back to the top here for a second. The default layout is going to be annual P&L. And what that will do for you is it's going to show you, again, your layout's going to be the same, but now it will stack up each of your departments next to each other. Right, so I've got the service department, my install department, my replacement department, and then all departments gives me a cumulative total for the whole company. And so you're seeing just the expenses that apply to that given department, or revenues for that matter. Right, so for example, here I've got diagnostic, let me see, what is this line here? We've got subcontractors. Right, so I don't have any subcontractors in service, but I do have subcontractor revenue in install and in the replacement department. Same thing on the some of the other expenses that are there, right? We can see the individual amounts of either expense or revenue showing up in the department as it applies, and then we have the grand total at the end under all departments. Now, remember the two major differences between cash flow and accounting. The first one is your equipment replacement costs. The second one is loan payments. And so as I scroll down to our expenses in this particular report, one of the things that you will see, all right, and we'll take that highlight off of there. One of the things that you will notice is we're going to have any loans, right? So let me scroll up. Remember, your accounting profit and loss statement, any dollars that go toward principal payment are seen as profit. They don't show up on your P&L. Only the interest does. In planning for profit, that's all money that's coming out of your checkbook. And so it needs to be built into your pricing. And so you will see in our particular case, each of the loans that you entered in and what is their full dollar amounts and how much is being allocated to each individual department. We're factoring that in. From a cash flow perspective, the money coming out of your checkbook, it is a true expense. The second major difference was equipment replacement costs. And so as I look down here, I can see the equipment replacement fund. Remember, your P&L probably has depreciation. Depreciation deals with what I paid for a truck 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. Equipment replacement fund on the cash flow side deals with what it's going to cost me to replace that same truck 2 or 3 or 4 years from now into the future. And we're going to build that into today's costs. For the typical company, your equipment replacement costs are 25 to 35% higher than the depreciation that's listed on your P&L. So we're factoring in that higher dollar amount because that's what's going to come out of your checkbook. And so we can see in our particular case, I've got this line highlighted in our service department. Out of our total expenses for equipment replacement costs, we're about $69,000. Of that, about $22,000 plus is allocated to service, $25,000 plus is allocated to install, and $18,000 plus is allocated to our replacement department. Again, that's all based on what percentage of time you said the individual trucks spend in these given departments. The software is calculating that automatically. One of the other differences on this report, on the profit and loss that you will see, is company matching taxes. So if I scroll to the top of here, and I'm going to go to the variable expense section of the report itself, one of the line items that you will see here is payroll taxes on direct billed labor. Right? So in other words, your company matching payroll taxes, your Social Security, your Medicare, the federal unemployment, state unemployment, the portion that you have to pay as a company owner, really shows up here in three different places. The first one is this one, is payroll taxes. It's your company matching taxes on direct billable labor. In other words, the field guys, the portion of their time that's billable, that you're able to charge to a customer and get paid for, that expense shows up here under variable labor. Because again, the more time they spend in the field, the more of that ends up being tied directly to their productivity. So it's going to show up in this area. The balance of it will show up down in your fixed expenses. So if I scroll down, I'm going to see two more entries. The first one is payroll taxes on indirect labor. So payroll taxes on indirect labor is all of the matching payroll taxes that you have to pay for your inside team, right? So your office staff, all of your indirect labor, that's going to be their matching taxes and what portion of it is allocated to which individual department. The last and third and last area is going to be payroll taxes on unbilled direct labor. So this is your field guys again. The portion of their time that was billable showed up under variable expenses. All non-billable time, by definition, is overhead. And so the payroll taxes on unbilled labor is going to show up here. Well, that brings up one other point, unbilled labor. What about that portion of their time that we couldn't bill somebody for? Again, by definition, that's an overhead expense. So you will also notice on the bottom of your fixed expenses, we have an area here for unbilled direct labor, right? For this particular company, there's $44,000 plus in wages that I have to pay out to somebody that I can't bill somebody for in my service department alone. Right? As I move over in my installation department, I've got another $67,000 here. I've got another $37,000 in the replacement division for a grand total of $148,000. Right? So that expense, in fact, for most companies, that's your single biggest expense, your unbilled direct labor. That will show up on this report as well because, quite frankly, it's not profit. The dollars, you have to pay it out even though you can't bill somebody for it, so it needs to show up here. Now, there's a couple of other items regarding the layout that we use on this particular report. First off, as I scroll up, I said that the default layout was the annual P&L. That's where it's going to stack up each individual department next to each other and give you a grand total for the company as a whole down on the bottom right. Now, if I change that to annual P&L by department, right, I can now see just the P&L for one given department. And whatever is highlighted at the top, right, so when I click on my service department, that is the P&L that I'm seeing. As I scroll down, I see just the service department, just the P&L for that department, right? And I can see what is the total annual amount, what is the percent of either income or expense that one makes up, and then what's the revenue or cost per billable hour that particular expense or revenue item makes up. Last item regarding the display that I want to point out, let's go back to our annual P&L, right, where we show up each individual department here next to each other. But let's say you want to just show two departments side by side, and that's it, right? So maybe there's one guy that's managing both my install and my replacement departments. And I want to show just the P&Ls for those two departments. I can do that by simply clicking on the selected column here. right? So I don't want to show my service department. And if you watch down below right here, as I hit that toggle, the service department goes away. And I don't want to see the company totals for all departments. So that goes away. And now I'm looking at a P&L for just those couple of departments. All right, so it helps us in that particular way. Again, just lets us display this report a little bit differently. Last item regarding display that I want to share with is this whole top chunk up here with our department listing chews up a lot of real estate on our overall computer screen. If that's set properly, you'll notice we've got hide departments up here in the corner. You can click on hide departments. What that does is it just collapses that section down and brings us right to the report itself. So it just makes that display a little bit quicker and easier. Last thing we need to talk about on this is we had mentioned a little while ago that, again, your calculation method can be set individually by department. And so I can, in any one of the reports, I can click on this Modify Method button right here. The Modify Method button will let me change those parameters for my individual department. So first, you click on the individual department that you want to work on. All right, so I want to change the rate for my service department. I now click on Modify the Method. And as I do that, it's going to bring up that department, right? So it's telling me right up here, this is for my service department. And I want to change that not to a current hourly rate, but I want to change it to a desired net profit of 25%. I can make that change right here. It will now recalculate the entire report and show me what are the parameters, what are all of my revenues, my numbers based on 25%. And I can see at that point, my net profit for this department is $65,849. So I can make that change on the fly, see how it would impact me. Now, with this report, any user can hit Modify Method and change that method there and see how it impacts your reports. Only an administrator, one of your logins who is set up as an administrator, has the ability to save that and apply it to the company for all other users. So if you're not an administrator, it will let you make that change, see how it impacts your numbers, but as soon as you get out of this report, it's going to revert back to whatever the normal setup was. Anybody who has a login set up as an administrator, so typically the company owner, bookkeeper, something like that, would have access as an administrator. They can then save that, make that change permanent company-wide throughout the software. If you have any additional questions regarding the Planning for Profit software and your profit statement, feel free to give us a call at Grandy & Associates.